So thank you, Missy.
So I've
And
allowed all of the Commissioner Bird, I've allowed all of the attendees to speak because I gave them permission to join the panel and nobody
Okay.
took me up on that. So they all now have the opportunity to speak.
Okay, great. So yeah, I would love, we do see this as a very, we're definitely seeing this session as an opportunity to really mainly listen. Like I said, we really see you all as the folks who are doing the work. And so getting your input is going to be really, really helpful. So please, over this next hour and a half, we're going to take this opportunity to really listen to, what I know in the previous the current performance framework, it's really it's part of the organizational framework is what we're looking at, the financial section of it. What we're proposing is to pull that out and actually have a performance section or a financial section of the performance framework moving forward. So that'll really be the focus today. And we really do want your input as to what has worked in the past. What do you see that you would like to have different? And if you've been able to review the new draft of the performance framework, it is on the homepage of the PEC website. If you've had an opportunity to go ahead and look at that, you can comment straight on that and be really specific as to anything you really like about it, anything you would like to change about it, or any comments you have in general. All right, so with that, Mr. Vigil, I think that you're my first volunteer.
Actually, Deanna's hand has been up.
Okay. I'm not able to see any hands up at all. I don't know how to see.
Oh, it went down now.
Okay. Okay. I'm looking at, I will look at I think if you raise your digital hand, I'll be able to call on you. But for sure, if you're able to accept that panelist invite, or if you want to come on and join us, we love being able to see you and actually feel like we're kind of pseudo talking with each other. And yeah, we're happy to go ahead and get started. Mr. Vigil, do you want to start us off? Or do you want to listen first?
Well, I guess I can just start by saying, well, I have not looked at the draft yet, to be honest. It's a real busy time for all of us, obviously. But
Definitely.
with the financial performance framework, what I know was that the one that I had seen in previous years has not been updated for many years. And a lot of the items seemed more procedural as opposed to financial. So there wasn't real metrics that pertain to finance or truly to even budget. They were asking, did you meet deadlines, or at any point where you moved to monthly or reporting, simple things that really the commission should be able to ask the PED directly without having to, have the charters fill out a form and we're just check marking boxes. The problem I have, and I've always had, and I've even told this to the people that worked on the New Mexico Ed Plan, the DASH, is that it seems like we're telling the same story to different bureaus within PED over and over again, where it's all this duplicative effort when it seems that PED should be able to internally talk and get a lot of the answers themselves. And in addition to that, the areas that there was some metrics on the financial performance framework, a lot of those questions are answered by the audit. I mean, the audit's not intended to catch anything necessarily. It's more of a reporting mechanism. But at the same time, if they wanted to know if you were out of budget compliance, I mean, did you get a finding for budget compliance issues? That should have been real apparent by the audit. We shouldn't have to, again, check mark a box. For me, the financial performance framework always felt like something that, kind of blindsided me. I was reminded that I had to go through it, and then I saw it, and it was very thin, I would say. Not a lot of substance when it comes to finance or accounting. And I would like to see that beefed up. I hate to create work for anybody, but if I'm going to be filling out something anyways, I would like it to actually report on what we've been doing, especially when we're doing a good job financially. When the finances are supporting the program in a way that's apparent, I think that that's what the framework should show, as opposed to being just, compliance measures. And again, duplicative efforts of things that, we should already all know and have access to without having to report it annually.
Thanks. Mr. Vigil, can you expand a little bit on what is not a part of it right now? I'm hearing that, it's really thin and it's really procedural. So what would be, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot, but are there any like specific metrics or measurements that you would like to be able to show that the school is displaying, that would be like an indicator of success in that way?
Well, that's where it becomes kind of difficult because charters are all so very different. And we work with, I think we have at least 30 clients at this point. And what matters for one charter might not matter to another. But for instance, one charter we're working on having a mature presentation of what we consider for our reserves year to year. So what does our cash balance trend actually represent? Why has it gone up or down, whether it be legislative mandates or student count or a pandemic that came through? We should be able to tell that story through some sort of reporting. And, again, you can pull those numbers, but that's the type of thing I would think of seeing in a report. Another one would be is if the school has had, cash issues in the past, or if we have the RFR issues that we're having with PED now, what's your days cash on hand? What should it be? And should it be measured across all funds, things of that nature? Just some hard evidential stuff that's not readily available through audit. Because again, audit is a great reporting mechanism, but it doesn't really, tell the tale of an individual charter school. And I think that's where it becomes difficult because, you have, 60 some charters, state charters. I'm not sure what the number is now, but having them all report the same thing, it might not make sense for one when it makes sense for another. I do think that's difficult, but that's I came out here to listen, to be honest, not to be first to talk, but that's just my top of the head type of stuff.
Well, I appreciate it. And I know someone had to be first, so I'm really grateful that you kicked us off. And now everyone else who was waiting to not be first, hopefully can feel more comfortable with speaking up as well. I might, Deanna, I'm gonna call on you next since let me make sure there's no hands raised, but I do see one. I might get kicked off of Zoom because every time I share my screen lately, it's been kicking me off of Zoom. But I did want to just flash up for those of the folks that are attendees right now. And then those of you on the panelists, I'm just going to kind of show the, right now, the first draft. It's kind of like the starting off point for a financial measures for a revised performance framework. I'm just going to kind of throw that up there just so that you all can kind of see what that a starting point of discussion could be. So let me make sure y'all can see. Glenna, are you able to see that? You're on mute.
For my eyes, it could be a little bigger.
Okay. Let me make it a little bigger.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So this is kind of, like I said, this would be kind of what a starting off point would be. Once again, we're pulling that from the organizational framework, really trying, Director Travis has worked really hard to try to take those duplications out and try to make it more streamlined. So this is kind of a starting off point. This is what we're looking at too. So those of you who are going to comment, Mr. Vigil, you're more than welcome to jump back in later. This is also what you're more than welcome to comment on.
So, I don't know, can you hear me, Michael Vigil? But this senior, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, so this is Mike Vigil Senior. So my son is who we were just listening to. I did look at this just a little bit ago. I have some specific comments on your new framework. I'm just going to go from the bottom up. 4E, school budget, percentage, cash carryover. So there is so much contradiction in direction from the legislature and the PED and the different departments in the PED as to what this number should be. And I understand what's going on. So the legislature And I've been doing business management since 1990, being the former CFO and chief business officer, superintendent for business for APS. The legislature wants us to spend the money that's allocated this year for this year's kids. The charter and everybody else is telling us, Charter Bureau, you need to have carryover. That school budget does that. State law says, the New Mexico Administrative Code, that you're not allowed to budget more than, I believe it's 3% into emergency reserve. And that's the law. But yet we're getting people like APS at one point was saying they wanted 45 days cash. 45 days cash is about 12.5% of cash. So I think the intent is there's a good intent here. If you're going to require a cash carryover or a cash requirement, I suggest you make it of all funds. So we have operational fund that has some cash. We have capital funds that have cash. It depends on your entity. So in APS charters, for example, where people located within the APS school district have House Bill 33, Senate Bill 9, and they also have the operational cash. And so it's a whole different issue than if you go to Rio Rancho, who does not have anything but Senate Bill 9 and operational. When then you go someplace like Taos and they'll have additional other resources that may be coming in. So if you're going to look at cash for this purpose, it should be on an all funds basis, not based on operational fund. I think when you start getting to 15 to 25% of your fund in cash carryover, what you're telling me as a former district person and currently working with all the charters, you don't want us to spend money on this year's kids. And I think that's an issue. It should not be 25% carryover on the money. That's just way too thick. And and I think the legislature, those of us that were around just 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we lost money when we had too big of cash balances. And we're setting us up to lose money again. And so when you review us and tell us carry this cash, you're saying you hold cash so we can give it back to the legislature. And so I think that money's for those kids. So that's my comments on 4E. 4D. So Mike and myself and our company, we are the takeover company. We've been hired many times to come in with troubled charters and financial issues. When we come in, the audit's already underway. We inherit audit findings. Okay, we get the audit reports in October, November. Okay, their practices have already been going on for 3 or 4 months. That audit finding you get for that fiscal year is going to repeat the next year automatically. I can't go back in time to July and change what happened. So when you get an audit finding, a repeat finding, I think it's a 3-year period to clean it up. It's not going to happen in 2 years because you find out the first year, it repeats the second year because you find out during the second year about the first year. So it's just a logistical issue. And for many times I've explained this to the Public Education Commission in the past. They repeat it because we took over in September, well, in July, August, September. We're looking at the processes. October comes around. The auditor writes up a process that occurred in July, August, September. It's too late. Can't go backwards. Can't go back in time. So I don't like the 2-year issue. I think it's a 3 consecutive years. I'm okay with 4C, though I don't really care for the title, generally accepted accounting principles. The reason I say that is, as a CPA, I hear a lot of people saying, I made comments of this in the many of the PEC meetings and PED meetings. They want us to follow GAAP. Well, we report everything to the PED on a cash basis of accounting. Cash basis is not GAAP. Everything we do all year round is not GAAP. It is another base. It's called other bases of accounting. The only thing that is GAAP is the financial statement at the end of the year, the audit. And it's not 100% GAAP. It's a modified accrual, which is similar to GAAP. So I like what you put in there about the findings and all that sort of stuff. I don't have a problem with that. I just do have an issue with the title because I think it's an incorrect title, just as a technical point. In addition to that, I do believe that you should exclude foundation findings against the school. Many times we're brought into reviews and they're like, well, you got this finding. Well, it's not our finding. It's the foundation finding. And if they have bad internal controls, or they donated money to the school, I understand. But we don't have complete control over those foundations. I've talked to my friends at UNM, at the Lobo Club, and the UNM Foundation and such. They're concerned if we assume too much responsibility of the schools over the foundations, is that nexus of proving that it's our liability, then it flows through to the state. So I think you need to make sure that we actually show that there is a corporate veil between the foundation and the charter, so that if there's any type of issue, we don't get the liability from the foundation transferring into the school or the state ultimately. And that's some of the concerns, and that's more of a legal issue. But I just want to make sure that our foundations aren't the reasons that we're being pulled into some issues there. On 4B, the Finance Committee, there is a law that we have a Finance Committee. I've never seen a requirement that there be a meeting. I've never seen a requirement that there be an agenda, and I've never seen a law there's been any minutes. So I know that when I was in APS, we formed a Finance Committee and we had one and such. But I go to many school districts that we've gone on the state's behalf. They do not have Finance Committee. So I think this is a law that was put in by an Albuquerque legislator back in the 2010 era, around there, 2011, I forgot what his name was. But it doesn't really meet, and I'm not sure. I do believe in Finance Committees. I like to use them, but I'm not sure why it's part of the monitoring process, because many people, including most school districts, don't use them. So I just feel it's an unfair practice that we're required to do stuff that the districts don't do. And the Board of Finance, I'm fine with. So those are specific issues that with your current issue. I agree with what my son said. I think the audit has almost 95% of everything that you need. What we find out by the takeover schools we've come in, the issues are more of nepotism, who the people are hiring. All the really difficult schools that we've taken over have had issues of conflict of interest between the directors and their businesses, or between the director and the business manager, that sort of thing. But I think a conflict of interest policy would be more that would be required for all schools and all districts. Could resolve some of these issues statewide. But thank you for listening to my comments. If you have any questions, I'm willing to answer anything.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vigil. Director Chaz?
First of all, hello to everyone. Apologies for running from meeting to meeting, but what a great group. Good to see some faces and to hear from you, Michael Vigil Sr. I just had a follow-up question to what you said. And it's about the foundations, because foundations are component units of a school, and then state charter schools are component units of the PED. And so we found that there's a number of audit findings that stem from the foundations. And I guess my question to you is, if we don't include that, what do you recommend in terms of accountability and reducing the audit findings that stem from foundations?
Well, I think we need to include them by the regulation, by the accounting rules as a component unit. And I've discussed it with the auditors. I don't have a problem with that. I think we need to talk to our schools and we need to work with them to make sure their foundations be as accountable and clean as possible, don't have the audit findings. However, what I don't want to happen is for a school that has maybe very few or no major audit findings, a lot of times they're like put on the red flag because their foundation has the finding, and the operations of the schools are running really, really well. It's the foundation that maybe had a bond issue or maybe had some sort of borrowing or did something that the auditors. And my concern is that if we don't, if we bring him in too close to the schools, and this is going back, and I think maybe legal counsel would be, I know the PED has legal counsel. Like I said, my UNM Foundation friends were telling me, if you don't want to get so caught up that they are considered part of the school so that their liabilities would come in and be absorbed by the school, and if closed ultimately by state, you don't want to incur those liabilities when you don't have to. And so I just want to make sure that we don't pull them in too deep. I am for their accountability. I'm for their reporting the way they are going. I'm for including them in the audit. I understand all those issues. I just don't want the school to be penalized if they make a mistake, and I don't want us to be also held, at some point, let's say it gets proven that we've taken over control of the foundation liquidates itself, and now the school is left holding the liabilities of that foundation.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question too, Mr. Vigil.
Sure.
So you said that the audit has about 95% of probably what we need. It's pretty much laid out in there. Is there anything that pops into your head for what the other 5% is?
Well, I think the things that we really need, I think from the financial standpoint, I think you need to look at the business manager, make sure they're currently licensed, which they do. We'll provide your license, so that sort of stuff. I do believe that, things like the audit committee, which we do meet with the auditors. The one thing that I kind of have cited to the auditors, I said, I don't know what the purpose of having a full audit committee is if they never request for all of us to meet with them. So we have the auditors come in from the PED and, Clifton Larson, and they're good friends of mine and such, but they'll say, bring me a governing council member and one audit committee member. And I'll say, well, I have the whole audit committee wants to attend. And it becomes difficult to get the whole audit committee there because they give you 10 minutes of a meeting. It's in and out. Walk in, they give you a report and you're gone. And they line up all the schools. So is it really an effective audit committee meeting, or are we just stamping what the law says? So at this point, to me, the audit committee meetings that we have, with the exception of the entrance conference and the exit conference, I'm not sure what purposes they serve, to be honest with you. They're not in depth. They don't give the boards much information. We just take 10, 15 minutes out of everybody's time. And prior to COVID, we'd have to go down to their offices and meet them in person. It was kind of crazy. The boards were getting pretty upset with them. So I think that those are the issues. I think I can't think off the top of my head what would be other issues that I look at. I think current cash, maybe the site visit, the day-to-day visit, is that they should pull current bank reconciliation and perhaps current cash balances to see where they are. And in today's age, the one thing that's hurting a lot of our charters, and Mike and I were just talking about this with our staff this morning, those RFRs, man, shaking them from the pad. We have stuff that's 6-7 months old. And, lease assistance, it took till November to get the whole thing through. To blame the schools for cash flow and all these issues, it's the root problem is, the people that are supposed to be funding us. I would feel that the PED is in violation of EDGAR regulations. They're in violation of federal law, which requires 30 days after approval for those RFRs to be at the site. And so, we are keeping track, and I've told many PED staff, I keep track of every RFR and I turn them to the auditors and their findings on the PED's books, because that's a material weakness on behalf of the PED. And I believe the PED, the PSFA, and the state agencies are more of a violation than the schools are at this point. But, so I think because cash flow is such a big issue, I would suggest that the site visit include a review of current cash and where it stands and what current RFRs are.
Thank you. All right, so if anyone else, like I said, if anyone joined after I kind of gave my spiel at the beginning, we do have the performance framework that that has those indicators in the organizational framework that have to do with financial, those are being transitioned into its own financial framework. And those, you can see them if you go to the PED homepage. There's a link to a revised performance framework. That's a draft. And you can go down to page 12, and it's going to show you the first draft, our discussion, kicking off point for the financial measures of a performance framework. So that's what we're looking. We want to hear what you like, what you didn't like about the previous one, and then please do take a look and try to be as specific as possible. Mr. Vihel, I really appreciate how specific you were and being able to go through it and tell us what you thought about it. So thank you for that. Ms. Mooney?
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see all of you, and thank you for giving us this opportunity. I do agree with both Mike and Michael on many of those things, and I appreciate that you guys did revise this from what I previously seen, because I think that was really there was a lot of unfair things to base it for a school. There's a lot going on. I mean, our funds have changed so much. We have so many funds compared to what we used to have. So there's a lot there. And the only other thing that I would suggest is that you give a place to tell the story, like Mike was saying. So if there are audit findings, there's usually a story behind them. There was fraud, there was things that went on. So did the school take the measures it should have for fraud? Did the school try to make personnel changes? And then to remember that we're always in transition. It seems like the schools have gone through so many people lately, and then you're retraining and stuff. So give us a chance to tell our stories so that you know if there's just incompetence there, or if there's things going on and it's a transition moment. But other than that, I agree with everything else.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. If there's anyone in the attendees that would like to speak, you just have to raise your hand and I'll be happy to call on you. We definitely want to hear as many perspectives as possible. We're also looking for as much innovation. We're really open to innovation. And so what could that look like in the financial side? And how can that be encouraged in order for schools to be able to meet the programming? How is there a way that we can encourage innovation in that way as well? Or is there anything that's hindering innovation that the PEC has any kind of authority of? I know you have a lot of mandates from the legislature, and unfortunately, that's not something that we can fix for you right away. But I do want you to know, for the accountability part for the performance framework, if there's anything that we need to know about as well. Mr. Vihel.
Yes, Madam Chair, Ms. Commissioner. One of the things right on what Deanna was saying, I like to think of the narrative, tell the story. One of the things I've been saying this since way back when is like, too many people plan a budget. We need to stop that. We need to budget the plan. And I keep on saying that. So we want, what is the school's plan? We're supposed to be charters. We're talking about what is our specific niche? What are we trying to accomplish? If you're a STEM school, are you really funding STEM? And I think as part of the review, that story that Deanna's talking about, I know that with my schools, I could easily say, well, let me tell you what we're doing strategically. We are going to be spending money here and here, and this is how our budget is aligned with the charter. Are we budgeting our plan, or are we just planning our budget? It's really easy to budget under state rules and balance it out and submit something and PED accepts. And you know what? It looks like everything else. No one can tell the difference. But I think that story that Deanna's talking about, if we were able to say, this is what we're doing different, might give people some ideas, and then we can start sharing our stories and how we can make things better for all kids across the state.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Voigt, if you have any kind of overarching questions that you want people to ponder as well, feel free to jump in.
I mean, everything that I'm hearing so far has been really helpful, so
Mhm.
super grateful for everyone's participation.
Very much so. All right, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna post the link to the proposed framework again. And I just want to remind you, I was sharing it, but every time I share my screen on Zoom, it kicks me out. So I'm going to paste it here for you all so you can open it on your own computers. And then, like I said, you can go down. It's actually all of page 12. If you want to share a screen, you're more than welcome to, Missy. I'll also paste the link too. But yeah, if you want to share the link, because it does not like me at all sharing it. And so while we get that up, and while you're thinking about what you might want to tell us, those of you in attendance, I do want to let you know that this is going to be we're revising this over the course of the summer. And so you'll have multiple opportunities to come and talk to us, see how we took your comments today, incorporated them into a different draft, come back and take a look at that and make sure it's something that you feel like can be accurately scored and is something that is relevant to the schools as well.
So what we're seeing on the screen doesn't look like the performance framework. But thank you, Chair Burton. What I want to say to folks that are looking at this is very much a draft. There is a team of people from the Public Education Commission. We've been working with Future Focused Education as facilitators to walk very carefully through the overall performance framework. We hadn't really talked about the financial performance framework. This is the very first time that we're really opening it up to hear feedback. I know Melissa, who's on the call, Melissa Sanchez from my office, has some ideas that could potentially be proposed to the performance framework. And what I want to do before we add them is do some trial runs. Like what would the implications be for some of our schools that are smaller and that sort of a thing. But so we consider this the first of a few different times that we will engage with you around the indicators that may shift. But this has been super helpful. And I know that we're recording this so that we can keep in mind your feedback.
Melissa?
Hi, thank you. So this is the first time I'm looking at these indicators on page 12 for A through 4E. And I have to agree with you. I don't like that term in 4C, generally accepted accounting principles. I'd like to find a better terminology for that. I'm wide open to anybody else's suggestions for that. I agree. I think that audit findings are important, but if we look at our current financial performance framework, there are 6 indicators and 4 of them have to do with findings. I think that they do tell a story, but not the entire story. So I'd like to really see that as one indicator, and then, really to highlight the significant deficiency and material weakness and repeats. I'm not as concerned as much with with other matters and non-compliance because, there's a materiality issue or it's just a matter of them not following their own rules. So, that, as far as Board of Finance, this is something that's hotly debated with me and with School Budget Bureau, because we've never been in a situation where we would take the Board of Finance. And I think that's completely off the board. I don't think that that's a really reasonable performance indicator here. I absolutely agree when it comes to ratios as far as cash is concerned. And my reason for that is the PEC and the Charter Schools Division were completely unaware of a couple of schools that were dipping very heavily into their cash balances. And it wasn't until school budget brought it to our attention. And so we weren't, looking at that sort of thing. We had no idea that that was occurring. So those are things that we should be looking at. Now, I don't think that I absolutely love the storytelling, and that is why I like to be on site visits for that very reason, because there is reason for a lot of these. So, and when it comes to cash, and when it comes to not receiving requests for reimbursement, and that they've been sitting out there for some time, that is a significant concern. Absolutely, there is no doubt. So by looking at these on a quarterly basis, we can reach out and speak to the school leaders, business managers to say, how could we help you with this? Not how can we hammer you for this? That's not how we're going to get to a place of supporting. And I believe, in my opinion, the whole reason why we do this is not to penalize, but to support. So that's kind of where my head is with all of this when it comes to the financial performance framework. Yeah, penalize, or maybe provide more guidance, or be a little bit more direct when it comes to things that's not meeting if we're not receiving cooperation in working on this. But I think that we all want the exact same things here, serving students, and how are we best serving students. So keeping in mind that that is that's the top of our stakeholders, right? Parents, family, and staff, and then compliance. So yeah, as long as we keep those in mind as we work through these, that some of the things when it comes to finance can be black and white, but it's finding those ones that are gray, that we're able to tell those stories and be able to support schools. So that's just where I'm coming from on it.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Melissa. Appreciate it. So I don't see anyone's hands up quite yet. So while everyone's, kind of thinking about what they want to say, I think I'm going to take this opportunity just to have everyone kind of say who they are, and maybe what group you're with. And that way we can give you some time to think a little bit. Hopefully Melissa's ideas kind of spurred some thoughts in you as well. But I think if we can at least figure out who everyone that's here is and where you're from, that would be really helpful. Commissioner Voigt, do you want to start?
Sure, I'm Commissioner Voigt, and I represent District 3, which is the Greater Albuquerque Metropolis. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm Commissioner Rebecca Burt. I'm the chair for this year, and I represent District 4, which is Sandoval County up to Los Alamos County. And there's two other commissioners on the project team, on the performance framework project team, that weren't able to attend, and which is another reason why we're recording it, so that they can watch it, since they weren't able to come. So there's also Commissioner Patty Gibson is a part of this project team, and so is Commissioner Stephen Carrillo. And then Director Travis, I'll pass it to you because she's the 5th member of our 6-person team.
Hi, everybody. I know several of you, but there's some new faces and names for sure. So I'm Karina Chavez, Director of Options for Parents and Families, Charter Schools Division as of a year ago last December, but I had a previous run at the PED. So I know some of the long timers. And I am fortunate to be working with this Public Education Commission to revise the overall performance framework and to have that work facilitated by an external party that has really been helping us. So Deborah, Good, and Rachel are here. But first, I'd also like to introduce my staff. So Bridget Russell is on the project team. She's not here today, but we are lucky to have a really excellent data and financial analyst on our team, Melissa Sanchez and Missy Brown, who works really closely with schools on technical assistance and training. So if the two of you can introduce yourselves, put your cameras on real quickly, and then we'll turn it over to Deborah and Rachel, and then get to the business managers that are in attendance.
Hi, I'm Missy Brown, Charter School Division's Technical Assistance and Training Administrator. We've got with us Dylan Wilson, Samantha Samuel, Mari Rincon.
Awesome. I'm just now seeing their names. So if you can turn your camera on and introduce yourself, that'd be great. Melissa, say hi to folks when you can. And then
Hello.
Rachel and Deborah.
Hello, Dylan Wilson. I'm not part of the panel, so I can't turn my camera on. I'm technical assistance and training specialist.
Hello, everyone. Oh,
Sorry.
nope, Mari, you can go. Thank you. I'm Mari Rincon, and I'm also part of the authorizing team. And I'm just kind of new to this group, so I'm happy to be learning from everyone. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sam, and I've been with the authorizing team since July, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Does that leave me, Karina? Hi, y'all. I've been blessed with the opportunity to work with and have conversations with just about every business manager in the room. So it's nice to see y'all.
Deborah and Rachel, and then we'll go on to have the business managers introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deborah Good. I am the Director of Organizational Learning and Research at Future Focused Education, and I've been facilitating discussions with the project team to make decisions about the updates to the performance framework.
All right, is that everyone on our side, Karina?
Rachel?
Oh my goodness, sorry everyone. I was double muted. I couldn't figure out why you couldn't all hear me. I have some weird things happening with my Zoom, but I'm going to try one more time. Can you all hear me? I see some smiles, so it must be working now. Rachel McCormick with the Future Focused Education team. My role on the project has been doing some research to inform our work group, looking at other states' frameworks, and then sort of evidence related to the different performance areas. So nice to be here. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, let's see. We've got Nicole Abeta, Mary Hegeman. I may have mispronounced that. And then Michael Vigil.
So I'll go to Michael Vigil. I don't know if it's me or my son you have there listed, but yeah. So I'm Michael Vigil. I've been a business manager since 1990 and worked in the charter schools, worked in school districts, and been around for a long, long time. So I'm glad to work with all of you.
Michael Vigil the second. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Mike Vigil II. I've been working as a business manager for 13 years, started with what used to be the New Mexico Coalition for Charter Schools, now Public Charter Schools of New Mexico. And now working with about 30 charters with the Vigil Group LLC, a couple of school districts as well. So we're getting to see that side and the different monster that becomes. And I'm actually specifically listed for 2 state charters and 2 district charters. So I do have a pretty good round knowledge of how the different difficulties that each sort of entity has because they are a little different. So glad to be allowed to be a part of this as well.
Thanks for being here, Mike. Which of the 2 state charters and which districts are you working with?
I work with Cuesta Independent School District personally, and then we also work with Mesa Vista Consolidated. We've also worked with Santa Fe Public Schools, Mora, also consulted with like Penasco, some other ones. And then I have the state charters. One is brand new, actually just got them open, is Thrive Community School. And then I work with the School of Dreams Academy currently. And then the 2 district ones I have are both APS charters, being Cottonwood Classical and the Digital Arts and Technology Academy. So I guess it's actually 5. I said 4, but I guess it's 5.
That's awesome. And I know there's lots of business managers that work for the V-Hill group, but do you want to call them out and have them introduce themselves? Be great if people could turn their cameras on too.
I think if they're not on the panel, they won't be able to turn their cameras on. You'll just be able to speak. And when you get called on, if you haven't given any comment yet, if you have anything to say, it'd be a great time to hear, just anything that you have in your brain about the performance framework. Even if it's just that you agree with something that's already been said, that's also still helpful. Is there anyone else from the V-Hill group that's here, Mike?
I don't believe so. There was we have a couple of conflicting Zoom calls,
Things going
believe it
on,
or
yeah.
not. It's that day and
Okay.
age.
All right, Deanna, do you want to introduce where?
So I'm Deanna Mooney. I've been doing this work for about 14 years. I had the pleasure of working at the coalition as well, and Michael was one of my mentors. And I currently work with Taos Academy, Vista Grande High School, and McCurdy Charter School.
Awesome, thank you. Patrick Kelly?
Hello, my name is Patrick Kelly. I'm the business manager at Media Arts Collaborative Charter School. This is my 20th year overall as a business manager, and I've been with the school since it opened 14 years ago. I agree probably with 95% of what's been said. I feel like there is a need for an objective measure that essentially morphs into a subjective kind of finding on that, because like with Michael Senior said is, you might have findings that may carry over from a year to year because of like for us, we had a finding carry over because of mileage reimbursements because of a way it was handled. This was like 5 or 6 years ago. I think a lot of schools got that finding, but you didn't find out about it until the following year. So it would raise a red flag on this measure. But then there's the story behind that, right? And so that's one of those things where the story might tell that, but if you got a repeat finding of going over budget, that should raise a red flag. I agree, right? Like no matter if it's a new business manager coming in, like everybody should know you have to stay within budget. Like, so there's those kind of things that I think maybe the objective measure raises a flag, and then the subjective, the telling the story may lower that flag, if that makes sense. So I think that's, I do have a little bit of thoughts on foundation maybe, because there needs to be some teeth and some monitoring of that from the PEC point of view, I think, but also I see Michael Senior's point of view of we can't monitor them too much because they're a whole separate entity. And with some of the legislative moves this year, hopefully the need for foundations is shrinking maybe. And so hopefully that trend continues to where, why did the foundation exist for charter schools? Like why, what is the need for them? Is it fundraising and those kind of things, or is it strictly a facility type of an issue? And if we could handle the facility type of issue, maybe that eliminates the burden on the school and PED to kind of even monitor a foundation kind of a thing. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Nicole?
Hi, my name is Nicola Beta. I am the Business Manager and Compliance Officer for Taos Integrated School of the Arts. I've been with the school going on 11 years. I've been their business manager for 3 years. Deanna actually was my mentor for 7 years. So I feel like I'm still pretty new to all of this. I've seen a lot go on since I've worked for the school. We are a public state charter school. I just feel like there's a lot going on right now, and I'm just trying to keep up with everything.
No, thank you. And we do appreciate it. And we know that you all are in like your busiest times as well. So thank you so much for your time. We can't express how grateful we are for your time right now. And then I do want to reiterate again, we will like get a hold of you this summer and then moving towards the next school year for multiple opportunities to look at this too. So if you feel like right now, I just can't even like put this on my radar, that's totally fine. We understand, but we'll give you some more opportunities to engage with us as well. So thank you, Nicole, appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Pena. I'm the business manager for both North Valley Academy and Roots and Wings Community School, both state charters. And I've been doing business manager work for about 12 years now. I've been at North Valley 10 years, and Roots and Wings, I'm completing my 4th year.
Awesome. Do you have anything you want to tell us about your experience with the old performance framework, what you've been working under, or if you've had a chance to look at the proposed one?
Yeah, unfortunately, I just started looking at it this morning, so I do want to take a little bit more time to give some thoughtful feedback, but I definitely agree with eliminating any kind of repetitiveness that, if we're providing something to school budget, I think that information should come from them. All of the questions about, were you late? Did you submit on time? I mean, it's really easy to check those boxes and just say yes if you guys really want to know that information. That should come from PED. So just eliminating any kind of overlap and stuff that we already do. And I would just like to take a little bit more time and provide some feedback later.
Yeah, please do. Thank you so much, Sarah. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Jolene?
Hi, my camera's not working, so I'm not able to share.
That's okay.
My name is Jolene Jaramillo. I've been in this field in a variety of capacities for about 25 years. I work with K-12 accounting and the direct business manager for Albuquerque Institute for Math and Science, as well as Health Leadership High School. And I have not had a chance to review the revised, so I would like some more time as well. But some things that I did see just off the bat is I do agree that the cash carryover 25% is high. And it seems that there's just 2 criteria, meaning like it's a success or a failure. So maybe having that middle area. And I did like the idea about having some kind of subjective input that could provide better response or feedback on if there's an area of concern.
Great. Thank you so much. And thanks for your time again.
Thank you.
All right. German?
Hi, it's Germán Martinez, and thanks for the opportunity. Work with a lot of the associates here in the room, and I appreciate the opportunity to join the discussion. I think from my standpoint, starting to work again with charter schools, work through some school districts in providing support and kind of changing some of the dynamics as far as how finance and programs are aligned. And so I think from my standpoint, working with charter schools again, I think it just kind of re-illustrates the fact that sometimes I think Michael Vigil had mentioned that we're planning just for the financial portions as far as what needs to be structured for each of the salaries and the positions and how the expenditures need to align, but sometimes it's looking at how we can restructure those programs to make sense for the actual expenditures. So curious to see how that discussion can continue. So thanks.
Thank you. I think I got everybody. I'm trying to like scroll through and just make sure everyone who is here has introduced themselves. All right, I think so. So Mr. Vigil.
And I threw my camera on now that you give us access. I think this has been great. I listened to everybody. I really appreciate it. Good to see so many of the people we've worked with before. I think it's really great. A couple of things I just want to make sure that as we go through for your consultants as they advise you on this. First of all, I've been to a number of trainings in the past that the Charter School Division and the PEC has put on. And when we worked at the coalition, I was the director for a little while, the director of the charter schools, the National Coalition for Charter Schools for a few years before we started this company. But I noticed that sometimes we get people confusing us with 501c3 organizations. We are not a 501c3. And many times I've gone into schools and have to change the tax paperwork or whatever to, we are a government agency. We are authorized by the state and we are an agency of the state. Your other agencies don't recognize that sometimes, and then they don't know what a charter is still. When we call tax and rev, when we call some of these other ones, we run into a lot of problems trying to get things fixed. And that includes workforce solutions and all these different things. With COVID happening, I would imagine all of us got a whole bunch of those letters saying that people were filing claims, unemployment claims against our schools. And when we got a hold of Workforce Solutions to report the fraud hotline, because some of our people were still getting checks, they didn't know what we were. So I think there has to be help for the state to get the word out. We exist and we're authorized by you, and we're a state agency. Secondly, I agree. This goes on to what Pat Kelly was saying. There's been a question for many years, and Deputy Secretary Paul Aguilar had tried to resolve it when he was in place. Whether are we a state agency or are we a local government? Now, Paul and his department called us a state agency, and that changes the mileage rate that we can pay our employees. State agencies are only entitled to 80% of the prior year's IRS rate. Local government agencies can pay 100% of the current IRS rate. So the finding that many of us incurred those years, Pat's 100% right, was incurred because we were paying 100% of the local government rate, and the auditors wrote us up because we were supposed to be paying 80% of the prior years. And so we got turned around. So we got a finding one year for paying the wrong rate, and then we changed to the rate we were told, and we got a finding for paying the new rate because finally Paul, and I give him credit, he got us an email saying, charge this, and we all went to the 80% rate. But I think there's some confusion still out there as to, are we, for some purposes, I hear from the state agencies that we are a local government, and for some purposes, we're a state agency. And if you're a district charter, it's totally different rules. So we need some consistency, and I think the state is very inconsistent. They're consistent at being inconsistent, if that makes sense. So,
may I ask you, Michael, to send me an email about that?
Sure.
Because that's the sort of thing that we need to be aware of so that we can run interference. I know that the term local education agency varies by entity that is defining it. But you're right, there needs to be some consistency. And what I don't want is for charter schools to get dinged by things that they don't need to be. So thank you for bringing that up.
Right. And so I think some of the findings that we get, this is going back to Pat's, we've talked about, Pat and I talked a lot of times, different things, but when we see each other, but these are findings that we get, and it's like, well, wow, we're trying to do it right, and they changed the ruling on me. I get a new memo. And just another thing that's come up, and this is something that my son, and he can address it more than I can. So we always review the emails that come up. The IDEA B carryover memo that just came out from the PED, Susan Lucero, is incorrect for many schools. And we've informed Kata Sandoval and Eileen Marujo. So they gave incorrect awards from the PED. And so now every school that falls into this, where the mistake was made, is going to budget incorrectly. So we're going to get a budget finding if we spend to that limit, because the information given by the PED is wrong. And we find those on occasion. And I've always argued with the auditors, this is not a school finding, this is a PED finding, because the strange thing, this is one of those, I call them SSR, stupid state regulations. They send us an award letter. We use the award letter to go to our schools to develop a budget. We enter it into OBMS, and we're required to send the letter back to the state. My question all along is, don't you have the letter? You sent it to me. So I'm sending back to you what you sent to me. Why am I sending back to you? So we have a lot of duplicate processes in the PED, that practices that are there. But these are type of the issues where we find mistakes. And so we review everything. And in the past, we have found some of these things were wrong. We do notify the people on school budget and that sort of stuff whenever we find these errors. So I just want to make you aware that some of these findings that we get are not necessarily the schools. And if a business manager did not know how to do the IDIB the same way my son did, they may be budgeting an incorrect number based on what was given to them.
So it sounds like this is the examples you gave are kind of reinforcing the idea that I think we've heard from multiple business managers of having like some the story behind a finding, right? Like having a space to be able to include why that finding is there is kind of reinforcing that, right?
Yes, right. And one of the things that I think that everyone should be very personally realizing, the last 2 years, COVID has been very, very difficult for all schools, public schools throughout the state. And so I know last year, and especially towards the end of the fiscal year, and I hope this doesn't happen this year, you get awards and they say you have 5 days, 7 days to enter the bar. Well, how in the heck am I supposed to go get the governing council and have a meeting, get it approved, get a budget together and submit it with the deadline you've given me? So some of these last minute surprises, I think they need to be more realistic and either give us a greater time to enter it or give us the authority to waive the process of going to the governing council and let us take it after the fact. Do something that's different, because it logistically it's a nightmare on some of these issues at year end.
Thanks for that. So we have time to, if anyone else has any other comments. I don't want to keep you if you, like I said, today we're really just taking this information in so that we can go back to the drawing board kind of and look at this and see if we can make another revision. Once that revision goes out, we'll make sure you get access to that. You'll have an opportunity to talk to us again about it. So this is definitely not, this is the very first part of the conversation, and we'll have multiple times that we'll be doing this in the coming months as well. So I know you all, like I said, we knew when we asked, we were like, we want to talk to the business managers. Like before we start like just making stuff up on our own, we need to talk to the people who are doing it. So we're so grateful for your time, but we did know that this is a very busy time for you all. So thank you. Thanks again. Patrick?
Thank you. Just from a perspective standpoint, I mean, I'm siloed in my school. So like there's measures that maybe make sense for my school, but I think that's where like the VHO group and K-12 that have that global, that have, you know, different regions of the state and district, and like those are gonna be really valuable, I think. just because there's different programs, right? Charters do different things. And so what makes sense at one school may not make sense for another as far as carryover amounts and budgeting, like what percentage you budget in X, Y, or Z, or you have an online school, so they have no facility budget, right? So they may have more in instruction and those kind of things. So I think that's something that hopefully would help the group, is to have that global perspective. I'm on a sorry. And then I forgot what my other thought was. I'm sorry. If I think about it, I'll come back. It was, it just seems like a lot of the whole thing is it's telling the story. Do certain findings raise to a level of concern for you guys as the PDC to be able to really look, or the PED to look at a school, right? So I know, like for myself, I think I talked to Melissa during our site visit, was there's probably every year I probably have a PO that's issued after the invoice date or something like that. And it's just, did the auditor happen to pull that check that year, right? But like for us, you know, if one year we had 10 out of the 50 samples were late POs, and then the next year there was 1 out of the 50, does that show a need for concern, like, or a need for improvement? So does that raise the red flag as far as the PEC goes? Because there's going to be different throughout our 5-year process of our thing. We're going to have different commissioners reviewing this data, and so having something that, you know, is somewhat objective for them to look back and see that I can see that that there was level of concern for this year, as opposed to the, you know, I think that's what's going to be kind of important. I think a little bit is to have, did something raise to a level of concern, not necessarily met a certain bar based on numbers or whatever, but it raised a level of concern that the school couldn't justify, right? And that kind of thing. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Villa?
Yes, thank you for comment. And I'm sorry, I'm talking so much. Maybe I should. This will be the
No,
last
please
time.
do. No, that's what
Okay.
this is literally what we wanted, was for people to talk to us today. So very grateful.
I like what Pat said, and I'm just going to add something to it. I think the issue is materiality. So we have to understand that we are under, our audits are under state auditor rule. The state auditor rule has defined 0 materiality limit. So if you make a $1 mistake, you get a finding. What kills me is, like, you know, I had a finding at one of the schools that data, they calculated their reimbursement. They were out by $1.17. They argued with the auditors, and we could show them the math. They didn't agree. We got a $1.17 finding. APS at the same time, this is an APS school, had a $3 million embezzlement. Okay, you know, it's not going to be, nobody embezzles the dollar. I told the auditors that, and that's their finding. They write this generic. I was an auditor. I was from 1980 to 1990. I was an auditor, I'm a CPA. And so if you do regular financial statement audits of businesses, you have materiality limits. And most of our other matters findings wouldn't even be findings in a business. They're not generally accepted auditing standard findings. They are state auditor findings. And so what we really need to do is to really look at that materiality limit. And, you know, when Pat gets a finding for, well, he had issued a PO, well, what was the PO for? $20 to $50? Was it $10,000? Was it $50,000? You know, what was the dollar amount? And I think using a more of a materiality concept for the dollar amount of the violation might help in our performance framework, in that, you know, if mistakes are made and you total the mistakes and, you know, totals under $1,000, does anybody really care? I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it's really small amounts that aren't material to anything. And people do not normally embezzle small amounts. So that's kind of something that I just wanted to add, that it is a materiality limit. And the one thing that hurts us is that we're small entities. So when they establish what they look at, what they report on charters, they look at every purchase, a lot of purchase orders, a lot of personnel transactions. When I was APS, I'll be honest with you, I was in charge of procurement in one of my departments. I had a stack of procurement violations, just what Pat's talking about. Never got a finding, because they don't have time to look at 30,000 POs that are issued every month. they choose a sample of a few hundred and they don't find there's so many that are issued there. It's the sample is so small. So I just would like us to start looking more at the materiality concept, maybe as they develop this framework.
Thanks for that. Any other comments? I also want to let you know if you're still hanging out and if you leave tonight and you go right back into your work and then tonight at dinner, you're like, you know what? I wish I had told them this. There is a link on the homepage of the PEC. You'll see the draft of the revised performance framework. There's a link right underneath it that takes you to a survey to where you can just add in whatever comments came to your mind. So at any time you want to provide feedback, at any time you are more than welcome to use that link and go ahead and just send it in. And the project team will receive that feedback. And as we meet every single week, we'd be able to see that and review it as well. So we'll invite you back for more opportunities to speak to us like this. But you also have that link that at any time, it pops into your head, you can go ahead and just give that feedback right away as you would like. And please tell all your other business manager friends about it as well. So they know too, hey, they're changing this and we need to look at it and we need to be involved because we really do want you to feel, we really want folks to feel a lot of ownership in this as it moves through the process and then ends up getting approved. We really value the input deeply. All right, I'm gonna open up for any last comments and then I'm gonna let you all go ahead and grab your lunches. So you're not grouchy the rest of the day, right? All right, well, seeing none, once again, on behalf of the Performance Framework Project team, we're just very grateful for you to give us your time. Please do, we'll keep in touch with any updates. There will be a revision that you'll see at some point and we'll be able to engage with you over the next several months. So happy budget season. We wish you all a lot of relaxation outside of your business hours. You definitely deserve it. And thank you so much for showing up and partnering with us today in this. All right, thank you all. Bye.